In just 3 days, we've had 3 threats. President Obama insisting he does not need Congress.
I've got a pen and I've got a phone. And I can use that pen to sign executive orders. Where I can act on my own without Congress, I'm going to do so. I'm also going to act on my own if Congress is deadlocked.
And now House Speaker John Boehner's office posting this response on Facebook. President Obama says he has a pen and a phone he can use to bypass Congress. Pens and phones are nice, but we have the Constitution. Senator Rand Paul joins us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Your thoughts on what Speaker Boehner has posted on his Facebook page?
I couldn't think of a more appropriate response. I think there's a certain amount of arrogance to the president saying, hey, I'm in charge here. I'm going to do what I want. I've got a pen. I've got a phone. Really, there's something really profound about the way we set our government up with checks and balances and with these 3 branches of government. And it works for one to check the other so you don't get an abuse of power. But what we've seen under this president, I think, is a great abuse of power. First, an overreach, with Obamacare, with the IRS, with Benghazi, and now with the NSA. So I think really we can't sort of trust this president just to go it alone.
But what are you going to do about it if indeed you're right? I mean, I hear so many, hear so many on your side of the aisle complaining about the president, but all I hear is people talking about it. Is there anything you intend to do?
Well, it takes a little while. We did fight him in the court on the recess appointments. He said he gets to decide when the Senate's in recess and he can appoint people anytime he wants. Well, the court rebuked him and said, no, you don't. And I think the Supreme Court is going to agree with that and say, the president, you can't just decide and do whatever you want. That's essentially what they're going to say to him. We're also suing him over the NSA. We're suing him because we don't think one warrant can apply to hundreds of millions of phone records. So it takes a while to go through court. I also think we need to sue over the idea on Obamacare that he thinks he can amend it. He says he's got his pen and he just changes it willy-nilly whenever he wants. I think that's illegal. I think that's unconstitutional. But we can't really have a decision unless we get to that 3rd branch of government, unless the Supreme Court will hear it.
Well, I'm not so sure why, it certainly isn't a surprise, this sort of viewpoint on it. I mean, he's quoted back in January 23rd, 2009, right when he became president, first term. He says, I won, so I think on that one, I trump you. I mean, this is this has always been the viewpoint he has communicated to Republicans on the Hill.
Well, the danger to majority rule, to him sort of thinking, well, the majority voted for me, now I'm the majority, I can do whatever I want, and that there are no rules that restrain me, that's what gave us Jim Crow. That's what gave us the internment of the Japanese, that the majority said you don't have individual rights, and that individual rights don't come from your creator, and they're not guaranteed by the Constitution. It's just whatever the majority wants. There's a real danger to that viewpoint, but it's consistent with the progressive viewpoint. It's been going on for 100 years. Progressives believe in majority rule, not constitutional rule. They don't believe that rights are inherent to the individual. They think your rights are whatever the government says they are, whatever the majority says.
Okay, unless of course you're the shoe's on the other foot.
Exactly.
It's always that way, but that's the interesting thing about politics. People have different views depending on who's in power. What's being said sort of behind the scenes on Capitol Hill about this? Because I know I hear sort of the growing dissension. I mean, people are growing more unhappy with it, although the president does have vast power to do things.
Right. I think that even on his side, even on the Democrat side, there's a certain feeling that it's a bit arrogant and a bit of a bully that comes forward and says, I don't care about Congress. I wish there were more on the other side and that we could have a bipartisan uprising that says Congress is going to take its power back. We're going to take our power back. We've given up too much to the president. And to me, this isn't a partisan issue. If this were a Republican president, I'd be saying the exact same thing. Congress needs to assert its authority. War power is a great example. We voted to declare war on Iraq or to give a use of authorization of war. It's over now. Congress needs to take that back and deauthorize the war. The president actually agrees with me on that, but it's once again a separation of powers issue. Congress needs to take back that authority for war and not give it up, in time, without any limits.
All right, you mentioned the NSA, so I have to ask this question. Snapchat. Apparently you're on Snapchat.
Yeah, I like the idea of my chats disappearing so the NSA can't look at them. So, yeah, we're chatting. 10 seconds really is plenty of time to say what you really want.
So so someone wants to hear what you're saying in 10 seconds. They go on to Snapchat, they look for Senator Rand Paul. Is that your login?
Yeah, and then it disappears.
And you like that?
You get to see it for 10 seconds. I think it's novel, and, I think it's fascinating. Kids like it. I think it's not so much, wanting to keep things secret as recognizing that what we say to each other in little snippets of 10 seconds throughout the day isn't so important that it needs to stick around forever. It just disappears and it doesn't waste space on your phone.
So what do you expect from the president on the NSA tomorrow?
I think he's going to say, trust me, I've got my pen, I'm going to fix it. The problem is I don't think you can trust the fox to guard the hen house. These abuses and this expansive use of power has happened under his watch, and now we're going to trust him to fix the problems. I don't think we can do that. I think Congress should assert its authority to regulate, oversee, and restrain the NSA. But ultimately, I think this has to be decided by the Supreme Court, because I don't think a single warrant should apply to millions of Americans. I think warrants should be specific to the person and the place and the items you're looking for.
Well, if you actually read the text of the Fourth Amendment, it's actually quite plain. I mean, it's pretty narrow. But anyway, nice to see you.
Thank you.